Hello, and welcome all you Middle-earth fans. In this hand, I have the sword Glamdring, which is Gandalf's sword. It's a mini version of Glamdring. I don't actually have the bigger one because I was too cheap to buy the bigger one. And here I have the Ring of Power, which I'm going to put on now. So I have knowledge of and control of all things. We're going to talk today about what happens if Elrond had killed Isildur and destroyed the One Ring of Power at the end of the Second Age after Sauron was defeated in the Battle of the Last Alliance. Remember the movie scene at the beginning of The Lord of the Rings when Isildur basically was at the cusp of Mount Doom, about to throw the ring in, and he was just looking at the ring. He couldn't throw it in. And Elrond was like, "Cast into the fire, Isildur. Destroy it." And Isildur was like, "No." And then Elrond was like, "Isildur, Isildur," as he walked away, and that started the whole evil of the Third Age of Middle-earth. What if Elrond, after Isildur said no, Elrond was like, "Hey, Isildur, guess what? Elven Fireball Hadouken." And he Hadouken Isildur. He fell into the cracks of Mount Doom, and he was destroyed along with the ring. Now, we're going to assume that Elrond dies too, because remember at the end of the Third Age, when Frodo destroyed the ring, it took some really big plot armor for them to actually survive, because Mount Doom essentially erupted, and somehow they escaped all the lava long enough for the eagles to actually find them. We're going to assume that Elrond does not have a giant eagle outside waiting for him to actually escape from the room, so he gets killed with the lava. Now, if he doesn't actually get killed with the lava, that actually has problems. And the reason is there is actually a curse for killing family members. And if you don't know the relation between Elrond and Isildur, Elrond is the brother of Elros, which is the first king of Numenor. Isildur is like the 40th or 41st in descent directly from Elros. So he's like his great-great-great-great-great-granduncle. By the way, it's the same thing with Isildur and Aragorn, except many more generations removed. From basically Elros to Aragorn, it's basically Elros, and then kings of Numenor, lords of Andune, kings of Arnor, and chieftain of the Dunedain, straight through the Second and Third Ages, and that's where Aragorn is actually from. So, fun fact there. But, Elrond doesn't want to kill family because there is a curse for that. However, but for the rest of the world, had he Hadoukened Isildur into the depths of Mount Doom, and then he died himself because of the volcanic eruption, the world Middle-earth might have been a better place. I don't know about for the elves, because remember, both Lothlorien and Rivendell was actually maintained by the power of the rings, namely the three elven rings, but the three elven rings would have been deprived of their power. Remember, had the One Ring been destroyed, in the Fourth Age, after the One Ring had been destroyed, the power that kept Rivendell and Lothlorien basically dissipated and disappeared because the three rings no longer had the power without the one. So I don't think there would be as many elves on Earth. Definitely not as many elves on Earth. They probably would have left much earlier in the Third Age, and realistically there would have been very little need for elves because they don't really need to hold back the orcs in Middle-earth anymore, so they would be free to actually depart for the Undying Lands. The orcs would not actually rise up as much, and things like Mirkwood would have never formed. It would have actually stayed Greenwood the Great. Greenwood the Great actually became Mirkwood around the year like 1300 in the Third Age, because Sauron started to have its influence and nasty evil things started coming out of Mirkwood. They later discovered in Third Age around 2746, I believe, the White Council, or the Wise, invaded Mirkwood and drove out, I believe, the Necromancer at Dol Guldur, I believe. So that essentially means that Sauron had his influence far before the end of the Third Age. It took him a little over 1,000 years to start having influence again, but he had influence far before the end of the Third Age in his Tower of Barad-dûr. So that is like the story of that. The orcs would never have been nearly as powerful without the influence of Sauron. Without Sauron, they're kind of like a rudderless boat, and they would not have been able to grow their numbers as much without his influence. The Khazad-dûm probably would still have orcs, but maybe not quite to that number. And Saruman and Gandalf would have never been necessary to come to Middle-earth without the help of Sauron. In other words, none of the wild men or any of the evil men of the East would have risen up as that much power as well, because the power of the West, of Gondor and Arnor, would have not waned nearly as much without the constant attacks of the wild men from the East upon Gondor, Arnor, and Rohan. And the other thing is, let's talk about Arnor. Arnor might have actually been better off. Isildur was the High King of Arnor. Now, how you're saying, how is Arnor going to be better off without Isildur? But you guys remember, at the disaster at Gladden Fields in Third Year 2, Isildur was killed anyways, and Isildur was killed along with his sons. Now, in this scenario, Isildur dies at the cave at the Mount Doom. So that disaster never happens because the orcs probably wouldn't be nearly as powerful, and also like his sons wouldn't be on that journey. So Isildur would still be dead, but his sons would still be there. Now his sons are young, but they could be brought up to actually rule Arnor. So Arnor would actually have more manpower. Plus, like things like the Witch King would never actually challenge Arnor, because obviously the Witch King doesn't exist with Sauron being destroyed and the ring being destroyed. Essentially, when the ring is destroyed, all the Morgul wraiths or ring wraiths would actually be destroyed as well. So the Witch King would have never existed. Arnor would have persisted, and Gondor would have persisted too. Maybe they would have been united long before Aragorn. And Aragorn would have actually been a king to start with, and not a ranger in exile, because without Arnor being destroyed, and with Gondor being much stronger, there would be no need for the Dunedain to actually hide their heirs. And they wouldn't have been like just chiefs in the Dunedain. They would have probably just been kings of Arnor. So definitely the Westlands would actually have a lot more peace. The evil people of the East would not have been quite as evil or quite as numerous, and the orcs wouldn't have been quite as numerous as well. So, in terms for himself, Elrond should not kill Isildur because he would be cursed for killing family, but in terms for the rest of the world, he should have just pwned Isildur right then and there, because that would have made things better for everyone else in the Third Age. Maybe besides the elves, because they were fading anyways, they would have been happy with a peaceful retreat into the west. So that's actually my thoughts of what would happen if Elrond Hadouken Isildur and he died in the depths of Mount Doom at the end of the Second Age and never bothered the Third Age. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with my analysis? Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button, and I will see you guys later.